My name is Ramzi Abukhadra. I run a real estate development and investment company based out of Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. We mainly work with a lot of land bank owners in terms of achieving two objectives. The first one is how best to utilize their land in terms of either development, monetization, whatever the case might be. And then we help them diversify their assets, so to speak, or wealth. So by virtue of monetizing part of their land banks in the country, we also advise them on where best to invest the cash that they generate, predominantly in real estate. For the most part, we move people from an asset-rich environment where they own a lot of land per se, non-income producing assets, into investments that tend to be either within the country or outside of the country, mainly income producing assets, in order to diversify geographically and from a cash flow point of view, enhance their cash flow positions. So that's what we mainly do. We work with several large clients in the country that own a lot of land. That has been historically the main wealth bucket that a lot of the wealthy families have in the country. So generally speaking, on one hand, we look for potential developer expertise, but for the most part, because of the nature of development in Saudi Arabia, developments tend to be very country specific in terms of the thought process and the design and what we're trying to create, whether it's housing communities or commercial assets, etc. So we tend to work a lot with local people. I believe in that because they have a sense of the local culture, the local movement that's going on, etc. So that's what we do in Saudi Arabia. So if somebody has local knowledge, we are always happy to work with to see how they have succeeded and how we can potentially duplicate and work on that success in some of the lands that we manage. Internationally, because we do seek income producing assets, we look at people who are predominantly operators. Development internationally is something that we do not seek actively, because then we go from one non-income producing asset to another non-income producing asset, which is not much of interest to us. But we do like to work with operators who are on the ground managing income producing assets and have opportunities for us to either co-invest with them or acquire something that is of interest to us. So we've worked a lot, for example, in the United States with a lot of multifamily housing sector, which is a sector that we like. It tends to be resilient, even through COVID, it's been relatively speaking resilient. So we do seek these kinds of partners. The US just happens to be one of the geographies we've accessed because of ease of access and structuring, so to speak. And the rule of law as well. That's very important for us, because one of the things we do seek is to invest in, relatively speaking, countries that have a very solid rule of law, as opposed to heavily emerging countries. We don't want to go from one risky asset to another risky asset, so to speak. So we are seeking partners in other parts of the world, whether it's Europe Australia has come up on the radar screen several times, but it's difficult to structure something there. As I understand, because of the residential sector restrictions in terms of foreign investors, in terms of income producing. However, if there are opportunities globally, again, in countries that tend to have a very good rule of law, we are interested in seeking partners to acquire. So in terms of partners, again, we seek people who have local knowledge, who have access to income producing assets in countries that, again, allow foreign investors to come in and out easily, and in investment themes that are very solid from the ground up, from the top to the bottom. So we are investors internationally. In terms of my own personal career, so I did not start out in the real estate development sector or investment sector for that matter. I started as an engineer, as a chemical engineer. I worked for the national oil company in Saudi Arabia, which is called Aramco, or Saudi Aramco now, for several years and the refineries and gas plants and project management entities or departments. And then post my MBA, I evolved into sort of a banking investment career where I worked for the Carlyle Group for 2 years, which is a global private equity company. And then I did my own startup during the internet boom era, which rose and died, like many, during the process of internet euphoria, the first one, and the 2000s, so to speak. So I learned a lot from that, what to do and what not to do. And then I went to JP Morgan, where I worked for 7 years. I was a managing director when I left. And predominantly with JP Morgan, I worked in the area of wealth management, as well as the real estate and infrastructure divisions within JP Morgan, where we advised several clients from the Middle East on how best to diversify and invest internationally in these two asset classes. And then in 2011, I left JP Morgan and I set up my own boutique investment/advisory company to advise some of the more interesting clients that I had the chance to meet when I was at JP Morgan. Continue to work with them. So they are a select group of people of similar mind, so to speak. We are friends more than a client sort of business provider relationship. And we work jointly with them. We understand them, they understand us, they trust us, we trust them. And so this is what I continue to do for the time being. We worked on several interesting deals, large and small, in several sectors in the real estate sector, or subsectors within the real estate sector. And we continue sometimes to seek new clients, but very selectively and very slowly, because we do not want to super grow. A lot of the clients in the Middle East tend to rely on the person in front of them as opposed to the organization to conduct their business. And so one only can do so many hours a day, and at the end of the day, it's a more convenient way to work. So that's what we continue to do. I think it boils down to friends and family in the right place, in the right setting. So to boil it down to the basics. Work also makes me happy. I think if I'm not working, I would go crazy. So work and a sense of achievement, making a bit of a difference. As of late, of course, we're all getting a little bit older, so a little bit of philanthropic work and looking after, the rest of society around us. I tend to be a little bit, or sometimes more, try to influence better behavior around the world in terms of egalitarian behavior, humanistic behavior, all of these things as we try on the periphery to change things around us that do not seem to be going in the right direction. That's something that makes me happy as well. But frankly, I think it boils down to good friendship, good family, good settings where one can share and, outside the COVID situation. Trying to stay healthy as much as possible within a constrained lifestyle. So there's always that inclination to continue to exercise. I love nature. I try to go sailing every year. I try to go hiking every year. So to me, nature is something that I seek refuge in, to relax, to reflect, and to really take a break. So I would say that's my main offline activity.